Just divorced from his star wife, Zeb Lowe unexpectedly became the personal assistant of the rising pop diva. At the same time, his memory of transmigration was revived, and he inadvertently started to become a scribe. Then, the legendary man behind the diva made his appearance. Ex-wife of a second-tier singer. Zeb Lowe is a decent man, but unfortunately, he's too ordinary to help me in my career. National goddess, stunning leg model, super diva. If I hadn't met Zeb, I would never have achieved what I have today. I'm so grateful to his ex-wife for bringing such an outstanding man to my side. Zeb Lowe, I'm just a personal assistant. Top songwriter, platinum screenwriter, great director, or the man who conquered the ice goddess, these have nothing to do with me, really. Ding! Storyshots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. Divorce cooling off period? In L City, M District. Civil Affairs Bureau, Marriage Registration Office. On the left, there's an office for marriage certificates, which is nearly empty. On the right, there's an office for divorce certificates, bustling with customers. At this moment, a woman with a hat, sunglasses, and a mask, possessing an outstanding figure and aura, is frowning as she questions the staff. Next to her is a tall man in his mid-20s with sharp eyebrows and bright eyes. The two have been waiting in line since the Civil Affairs Bureau opened that morning. After a long wait, they finally reached the counter and submitted their signed divorce agreement and relevant documents. But they were told by the staff that they couldn't divorce immediately, they needed a cooling-off period. According to the latest civil code, a divorce requires a 30-day cooling-off period. During this time, if either party does not wish to divorce, they can withdraw their application at the Civil Affairs Bureau. We both want to get divorced. Can't we process the divorce certificate right away? The woman inquired again. The staff, adhering to the principle of reconciliation, advised. Ma'am, why don't you both reconsider? Don't ruin a lifetime of happiness over a moment of impulse. The woman glanced at the man named Zeb Lowe beside her, hesitated for a moment, but ultimately insisted. Thank you, but we don't need to reconsider. A few minutes later, the two exited the Civil Affairs Bureau. The woman looked around cautiously before getting into a white Toyota Alphard with Zeb. Inside the car, a short-haired middle-aged woman eagerly asked, "Did you get it done?" The young woman took off her sunglasses, revealing a beautiful and charming face. If passers-by saw her, they would immediately recognize her as the recently popular star, Yvette Smith, known as the Pure Sweetheart. However, this big star, who usually smiled sweetly in front of the camera, appeared somewhat fatigued now. She rubbed her temples and said, "The Civil Affairs Bureau said we need a 30-day cooling-off period before we can process the divorce certificate." 30 days? The middle-aged woman, Zelda Clark, was taken aback, clearly disappointed. She was Yvette's manager and had strongly urged her to divorce her ordinary husband, leading to today's events. Zelda looked at Yvette, then at the silent handsome man, and sighed. "You've spent 3 years proving this is a failed marriage. What's the point of dragging it out for another 30 days? The atmosphere in the car turned somewhat heavy, and Zeb suddenly spoke up. "I'll move out today. Let's come back in a month to process the divorce certificate." With that, he opened the car door and got out. Watching his tall figure, Yvette couldn't help but call out, "Zeb." The man named Zeb turned around, his expression calm, and the look in his eyes no longer held the previous heat. Yvette opened her mouth, her voice slightly dry. "What about the 3 million? You really don't want it?" She and Zeb had fallen in love at first sight in college, dated for 4 years, and married right after graduation. Now they had been married for 3 years. Yvette rose from an ordinary college student to a popular second-tier singer almost overnight after participating in a talent show. Zeb had always been by her side, acting as her assistant and bodyguard. She shone brightly on stage while he quietly protected her behind the scenes. Initially, they were very affectionate, and Yvette even had been pregnant with Zeb's child, but she aborted it for the sake of her career. As Yvette became more successful, she gradually felt that Zeb couldn't keep up with her pace. A crack formed in her heart, and their married life became increasingly dull. Though they still lived together, they had been sleeping in separate rooms for over 6 months. The pure college girl and handsome boy were ultimately worn down by the entertainment industry, and that clear love couldn't withstand the fickleness of human hearts. A few days ago, Yvette proposed the divorce. Zeb made no pleas or attempts to reconcile. He signed the divorce agreement without hesitation and gave up their joint property. The house and car were all bought by Yvette after she became a star, and Zeb felt no attachment to them. He even rejected Zelda's offer of a $3 million hush money. Zelda feared that after the divorce, Zeb might harbor resentment and tell others about his relationship with Yvette, which would ruin her pure image. At this moment, Yvette voiced her concerns, clearly worried about the same issue. Hearing her words, Zeb turned to look at her, smiling calmly. "After all these years together, you still don't understand me. What a pity." With that, he turned and left. The midday sun fell on him, clean and unrestrained, just like the boy he once was, unchanged in the slightest. Yvette stared blankly at his back, her eyes slightly moist. She closed her eyes, stopping the weakness that was about to spill over. This man was handsome, gentle, considerate, and responsible. If she were an ordinary woman, she would undoubtedly want to grow old with him. But unfortunately, in her quest to climb to the pinnacle of the music scene, she can't afford to carry any burdens. Zelda was a bit worried. What does he mean by that? He wouldn't go around trying to retaliate against you, would he? Yvette sighed. "I know him, he won't." Only then did Zelda feel relieved and smiled. "I have good news for you. The third season of I Am a Singer has invited you as a featured singer." Yvette was taken aback, the moisture in her eyes fading, replaced by joy. "Really? That's wonderful." Being a featured singer on a top-tier show like I Am a Singer meant her status had been recognized. If she could achieve good results, she might really join the ranks of top singers. Zelda paused for a moment and added, "Myra Simpson has also received an invitation. Unless something unexpected happens, she will also be a featured singer." Myra Simpson? Hearing that name, Yvette frowned. After all, she and Myra had quite a connection. They both debuted around the same time and signed with the industry giant SkyCloud Entertainment, sharing somewhat similar styles and vocal qualities. But the difference was that Myra was already a recognized little diva in the music industry, a national goddess. Meanwhile, Yvette was still struggling to climb up from the second tier, with many people even jokingly calling her the low-budget version of Myra. If Myra also went to I Am a Singer, Yvette, with a similar style but a much lower status, that could be a bit troublesome. Zelda continued, "You don't need to worry too much. Recently, Myra has had a lot of negative news, and I've heard her condition isn't great. Maybe this is your chance to replace her." Replace Myra Simpson? Become the little diva of the music scene? Yvette's gaze sharpened, and the ambition and desire on her face showed no signs of concealment. Having ended that perhaps happy but ultimately unhelpful marriage, it was time to elevate her career. Zeb Lowe took a taxi back to the residence he shared with Yvette. He quickly packed his bags and took one last look at the house he had lived in for 3 years before leaving without looking back. Dragging his suitcase out of the community, he looked up at the sun already blazing in the sky and couldn't help but smile wryly. Divorced on Earth, didn't expect to do the same on Blue Star. Zeb had lived on Blue Star for 26 years, and until a month ago, he had suffered minor injuries from being grazed by a car. Since then, fragmented memories from Earth had occasionally surfaced in his mind. But these memories were quite vague. Zeb only remembered that he had also been divorced in his previous life on Earth, but he couldn't recall much else. After deciding to divorce Yvette, strange text began to appear before his eyes, and he was the only one who could see it. At this moment, 4 lines of small text reappeared in front of him. "Unfortunately, it's not you, Earth memory replication in progress, replication progress 1%. Ordinary road, Earth memory replication in progress, replication progress 1%. Encounter, Earth memory replication in progress, replication progress 1%. Lonely Hero, Earth memory replication in progress, replication progress 1%. L City, SkyCloud Entertainment headquarters. In an office, a woman stood by the large, bright floor-to-ceiling window, silently watching the bustling traffic below. The woman had an oval face, eyebrows like distant mountains, and eyes like autumn waters, with a graceful figure. Even without makeup, dressed in a simple white shirt and jeans, she was several times more beautiful than those glamorous female stars. Unfortunately, her demeanor was too cold, making her seem like a lone plum blossom in a snowy night. Though stunningly beautiful, she was also so cold that no one could approach her. However, amidst the recent gossip and rumors, this cold, solitary woman had been labeled as a shameless mistress who climbed to the top by leveraging her looks. Moreover, after recently falling seriously ill, her voice had been affected, and many were eagerly anticipating the day she would fall from grace. In 3 years, she went from Best Newcomer to nominated for Best Singer of the Year, and now to a little diva of the music scene. Her rise had been too swift, blocking many people's paths. However, the concerns were not just the rumors and those lurking in the shadows as competitors. There was also a package sitting on the table at that moment. The package had been opened, revealing a photo of Myra Simpson, with 3 blood-red characters written on it, "Wait for me." "Miss Simpson, Ms. Van, this is the 3rd photo we've received this month," the round-faced, slightly plump assistant said anxiously. Myra had been having a tough time lately. Besides being slandered, she had received several threatening packages. The company had already reported to the police, but these packages were not mailed. They were secretly left at the door of SkyCloud Entertainment. The police had yet to identify who delivered the packages. It could be a competitor or some extreme fans. If it were the latter, things could get even trickier, as many artists in the entertainment industry had been harassed or even harmed by obsessive fans. The company initially considered hiring a bodyguard for Myra, but given that she was already in the spotlight, hiring a bodyguard would likely lead to accusations of her being high maintenance. In the end, Myra's manager, Honor Van, suggested hiring a personal assistant in Myra's name to act as a bodyguard under the guise of an assistant. However, Myra had a cold personality and disliked being followed by strangers. She had interviewed quite a few candidates recently, but all had been passed over by her. Now, without a personal assistant or bodyguard hired, another threatening package had arrived. At that moment, Honor's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. She answered, and a gentle, refined voice came through. "Hello, may I speak to Ms. Van? This is she. I saw the job posting online and would like to apply for the personal assistant position." "Okay, I'll give you an email address. Please send your resume over, and if it's suitable, we will notify you for an interview." Honor responded skillfully. "Thank you." The warm-voiced man hung up the phone. "Ms. Van, is there another applicant?" the little assistant Nettie Collins asked excitedly, leaning over to look at Honor's phone. Soon, Honor received a resume in her inbox. "Wow, he's so handsome," Nettie exclaimed upon seeing the photo on the resume. Zeb Lowe, 26 years old, has experience as an assistant and bodyguard. "This is perfect. Miss Simpson, you should come take a look." Hearing the assistant's chatter, the cold woman standing by the floor-to-ceiling window slowly turned around, her stunning oval face showing no expression. She merely said, "You all decide." Her voice was slightly hoarse. Her originally crisp tone had been affected by her illness, which was another concern for Honor and Nettie. Next week, Myra will be attending the recording of the first episode of I Am a Singer. She is currently troubled by rumors, and her voice hasn't fully recovered, leaving her future on the show in doubt. Honor isn't even thinking about good results right now. Just getting through this tough time safely would be great. "Shall I call him over for an interview?" Honor asked Myra. She was responsible for the initial resume screening, but the final interview results were ultimately up to Myra. So far, they had interviewed more than 10 candidates, but none of them met Myra's expectations. Myra nodded, and Honor called a man named Zeb Lowe, giving him the company's address and notifying him to come for the interview. After hanging up, she noticed Myra had turned away, standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, continuing to watch the ebb and flow of people below, the myriad of lives. That tall, beautiful silhouette was slender yet stubborn. Honor sighed, "I hope this Zeb Lowe can do the job." Half an hour later, Zeb arrived at the office building where SkyCloud Entertainment was located, dragging a suitcase behind him. "I didn't expect to be back here again." Zeb looked up at the towering skyscraper, feeling a bit emotional. When he was Yvette's manager and bodyguard, he often accompanied her to SkyCloud Entertainment. But to hide their relationship, he always kept a low profile, and no one noticed him. Unexpectedly, just after divorcing Yvette, he found himself here again. Zeb had just moved out of the apartment he shared with Yvette, and his mind was still stuck at only 1% progress on 2 songs from Earth. The urgent task was to find a place to settle down. Although Zeb had some money, he couldn't stay in a hotel indefinitely. It would be best if he could find a job that provided accommodation to tide him over. Zeb quickly found a suitable job on a talent information website, personal assistant. After all, he had worked as Yvette's assistant for 3 years, so he had the experience. As for which artist at SkyCloud Entertainment was looking for an assistant, he didn't care. He now had a natural aversion to people in the entertainment industry. Once such a pure girl, after a few years in the industry, had become consumed by greed. It was just a big diva. How could there be any good people? Zeb walked into SkyCloud Entertainment and called Honor at the front desk. Soon, a plump girl with a round face came out. "Hello, Mr. Lowe, please follow me." Nettie smiled at Zeb, silently marveling. "Wow, he looks even better in person than in the photos. None of those male stars are as handsome as him." "Okay, thank you." Zeb nodded and followed Nettie to an office. As he entered, he was greeted by a scene that looked like a painting. A graceful figure with long hair stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the bustling street below. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a slanting glow on her, highlighting her enchanting curves with a faint golden edge. Yet, even under the blazing sun, it couldn't dispel the coldness and solitude radiating from the woman. Like a solitary plum blossom under the warm winter sun, unable to be warmed, it only blooms in the cold night. Isn't that Myra Simpson? Is she the one looking for a personal assistant? Zeb, having spent 3 years in the industry, immediately recognized Myra. This woman, known as the little diva of the music scene, had 2 defining features: her legs and her cold demeanor. Myra's long legs were famous in the entertainment industry: long, proportionate, slender yet shapely, a true leg goddess. The coldness was her aura. This woman rarely spoke apart from singing and had never smiled at anyone. Why would such an ice queen need a personal assistant? As Zeb pondered, a middle-aged woman sitting on the sofa spoke up. "Mr. Lowe, please take a seat." Zeb withdrew his gaze and sat down across from her. "Mr. Lowe, time is precious, let's start the interview." Honor appraised Zeb from head to toe, thinking that his appearance was quite suitable for being an artist, but as for an assistant and bodyguard. Thinking this, she still wore a smile. "Mr. Lowe, I believe you've seen the requirements in the job listing. This position is a bit special, you'll have to do some assistant work, but the main responsibility is actually as a bodyguard. You must ensure the boss's safety. What advantages do you think you have to be qualified for this job?" Zeb didn't need to think and replied directly. "I've worked as an assistant and bodyguard for 3 years. Does that count as an advantage?" Honor and Nettie exchanged glances, and Honor asked, "Mr. Lowe, can you reveal who your previous boss was?" "Why didn't you continue?" Zeb replied, "Sorry, I promised someone to keep it confidential. As for why I resigned, I guess we both got tired of it." Although the last sentence sounded a bit strange, Honor didn't press further about Zeb's former boss. She then asked a series of professional questions related to assistants and artist bodyguards. Zeb answered each one fluently. Honor was very satisfied, and Nettie also thought that this handsome Mr. Lowe was quite impressive. However, the final decision still rested with Myra. At this point, Myra, who had been standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, finally turned around. Her stunningly beautiful and cold face was enough to captivate anyone. The interviewees before her had all been amazed by Myra, some stunned, some gasping, losing their composure in various ways. Yet Zeb remained calm. Having been an assistant and bodyguard for Yvette for 3 years, he had seen too many beautiful stars. Most of those pretty faces hid mundane, self-serving souls beneath. Although Myra was the most beautiful woman Zeb had ever seen, who knew what lay beneath the surface in the entertainment industry? Myra looked at Zeb, who had an expression of complete calmness, slightly surprised. The earlier interviewees, upon realizing that their employer was Myra Simpson, couldn't hide their joy and desire. After all, this personal assistant and bodyguard would need to stay with her every day. If they hired someone infatuated with her looks or harboring desires, it would put her in danger. What Myra needed was a man indifferent to her, as only such a man could complete the job without causing her trouble. And this man, who seemed completely uninterested in her, appeared to fit her requirements perfectly. Myra walked toward Zeb, her long legs moving gracefully, her cold aura unable to hide her alluring figure. She reached out her hand to Zeb. "Mr. Lowe, you've been hired." Zeb stood up but didn't immediately shake her hand. Instead, he asked the most pressing question, does this job include accommodation?" The room fell momentarily quiet, and Nettie quickly chimed in, "It includes meals and accommodation." Zeb nodded and reached out to gently shake hands with Myra. "Boss, I look forward to working with you." In the next moment, Zeb was stunned. The instant his hand touched Myra's, words suddenly appeared before his eyes. "Unfortunately, it's not you. Earth memory replication progress at 20%. Ordinary road Earth memory replication progress at 15%. Encounter Earth memory replication progress at 10%. Lonely Hero Earth memory replication progress at 5%. Mr. Lowe, here's the employment contract. Please take a look and sign if everything is fine." In a white van, Nettie was driving, Honor sat in the passenger seat, and Myra and Zeb were in the back row. However, Myra had straightened her back, almost pressing her left side against the window, her beautiful eyes like water gazing outside. She seemed to want to stay as far away from Zeb as possible. Zeb couldn't help but wonder, if she disliked contact with strange men so much, why did she hire a male assistant? At that moment, Honor turned around and handed a contract to Zeb. Okay. Zeb took it, and the contract contained the terms they had just discussed in Myra's office. Party A, Myra Simpson. Party B, Zeb Lowe. Monthly salary of $10,000 in bonuses, meals and accommodation included. 3-month contract, renewal subject to Party A's discretion. Party B must keep the work content confidential and cannot disclose any information about Party A to outsiders, nor reveal to anyone that they are working alongside Party A. Zeb couldn't help but laugh. This sounded less like an assistant position and more like being a spy. But he didn't mind, after all, it was only 3 months, and for him, it was just a way to clear his mind after the divorce. At the same time, it was a chance to explore the secret of Earth memory. Just now, when he briefly shook hands with Myra, the replication progress of those 4 Earth songs that hadn't budged for months suddenly surged forward. Could it be that interacting with the singer helped unlock Earth memory? But he had had deeper interactions with Yvette before, so why had those 4 songs always been stuck at 1%? This question had no answer for now, so Zeb signed the contract. Myra also signed, officially establishing the relationship of boss and personal assistant. Honor glanced at Myra. Myra, can we talk now? Myra retracted her gaze from the window and nodded. Honor's expression turned serious as she pulled out 3 photographs from her bag and handed them to Zeb. Zeb looked at them and saw they were all photos of Myra, seemingly taken secretly, with each photo displaying the words, "Wait for me." The writing was crooked and blood red, looking somewhat terrifying. Zeb's expression stiffened as he looked up at Honor. "Does someone want to harm Ms. Simpson?" "Who is it?" Honor replied, "The police are still investigating, but Myra is a public figure, so we can't spread this around. We can only hope the police find out soon." Zeb understood, "So my task before then is to protect Ms. Simpson?" Honor nodded, and Nettie cheerfully added from the front seat, "It's 24-hour close protection." Half an hour later, the van drove into an underground parking lot of a residential complex. Zeb glanced at the name of the complex, which was quite poetic, Snow Plum Garden. Nettie parked the car, and they took the elevator to the 6th floor. This was a rather upscale multi-story house, 2 units per floor, and there were only 6 floors. Myra lived on the top floor. Entering Myra's home, it wasn't as luxurious as he imagined. The decor was quite elegant, with mostly white furniture, giving it a somewhat cold feel. Myra's home had 2 floors. The first floor included a living room, dining room, kitchen, and 2 bedrooms. Next to the kitchen was a staircase leading to the 2nd floor. "Mr. Lowe, this is where you'll be staying from now on," Honor said to Zeb. "This isn't Ms. Simpson's home? I'm staying here?" Zeb was taken aback, glancing at Myra, who had walked straight to the floor-to-ceiling window to look outside. This woman seemed to dislike socializing but paradoxically enjoyed standing inside and looking out. Nettie cheerfully said, "Of course. If you're going to protect Ms. Simpson 24 hours a day, you have to live in her house. Myra, Honor, thank you for your hard work today. You can go back now." Myra turned from the window and said to Honor and Nettie, "Myra." Honor wanted to say something, but upon seeing Myra's cold expression, she sighed and said to Zeb, "Tomorrow, Myra will be going to X City to record I Am a Singer. We'll come by at 8 in the morning." Zeb nodded. Before leaving, Nettie winked at Zeb and raised her fist. "Mr. Lowe, good luck." Zeb smiled back at her. Once the two left, the large house was left with only Myra and Zeb. Cough, Zeb cleared his throat, unsure of what to say. Myra was a bit too cold for him, making it hard for him to speak. Myra reached out toward the sofa, her originally crisp voice somewhat hoarse, "Please sit." Zeb sat down, but then saw Myra pull a piece of paper from her bag and hand it to him. Zeb took it and saw the title was Private Assistant Cohabitation Agreement, with 7 or 8 stipulations inside. The private assistant's activity space includes the living room, kitchen, bedroom, and bathroom on the 1st floor, but entry to the 2nd floor is forbidden. Besides necessary work-related contact, the private assistant cannot interfere with Myra Simpson's private life for any reason. The private assistant cannot bring anyone to the house. All were restrictions placed on Zeb. Zeb understood, after all, as a woman suddenly living with a man for 3 months, anyone would feel uncomfortable. Zeb suspected that it was Honor who strongly pushed for hiring a personal assistant and bodyguard, while Myra likely wasn't keen on it. That's why Myra brought out this cohabitation agreement after her manager and assistant left. Zeb didn't mind. Myra was unwilling to interact with strange men, and he didn't have any good feelings toward people in the entertainment industry. Moreover, Myra's reputation wasn't great right now. Rumors online were circulating about her being involved in shady deals and being a mistress. Zeb had no thoughts of her in that way. He was just looking for a job to tide him over. Zeb readily signed the agreement, and Myra took it back, pointing to a room on the left side of the living room. "You'll stay there." After saying that, she got up and walked toward the stairs. Zeb asked, "Do you have any ingredients at home? What do you want to eat tonight?" The duties of a personal assistant also included cooking. During the interview, Honor specifically asked Zeb about his cooking skills. In this society, men often cook better than women. That was the case with Zeb and Yvette. When they were together, Zeb usually did the cooking. "I'm not hungry, there are ingredients in the fridge. You can cook whatever you want," Myra said, then went upstairs. Zeb Lowe shrugged. He had heard about Myra being sick before, and now that he looked at her, her complexion indeed didn't look good. She probably hadn't fully recovered yet. Not eating at all? TSK, does she really want to be a fairy? Forget it, she's the boss, and I'm just an assistant, so I can't say much. Zeb opened the fridge, which was indeed filled with various ingredients, probably bought in advance by Nettie. It was already evening, so Zeb didn't hold back and made a pot of fragrant beef rice. After eating, he took his change of clothes and personal items to the room that Myra had designated. The room was quite spacious, bright and clean, with a TV, computer, and various equipment, almost like living in a 5-star hotel. Zeb nodded in satisfaction. This job that included meals and accommodation was indeed not bad. Aside from the boss being a bit cold, everything else was perfect. He could move freely on the first floor, so he didn't have to stay in his room all the time. Zeb planned to familiarize himself with the layout of the house, just in case any emergencies arose. As he reached the bottom of the stairs, he faintly heard piano music and singing coming from the second floor. It was Myra practicing her songs. Zeb was a bit surprised. He had heard Myra sing before, and her voice and singing skills were quite good, but he didn't expect her to play an instrument as well. However, at that moment, her voice wasn't as ethereal and clear as usual. It sounded a bit hoarse, probably due to her previous illness. Suddenly, Zeb froze. "Unfortunately, it's not you. Earth memory reproduction in progress, replication progress 22%. Ordinary road Earth memory reproduction in progress, replication progress 17%. Encounter Earth memory reproduction in progress, replication progress 12%. Lonely Hero Earth memory reproduction in progress, replication progress 6%. The replication progress of the 4 Earth songs had increased a bit again. With Myra singing from the second floor, the replication progress of the 4 songs was still slowly increasing. A few minutes later, as the song ended, the replication progress of Unfortunately, It's Not You had reached 35%, while Lonely Hero was the slowest but had also reached 15%. Zeb was somewhat surprised. Could it really be that his contact with Myra was speeding up the replication progress? At that moment, he heard the sound of a door opening and footsteps from the second floor. It should be Myra coming out of her practice room. Zeb felt a bit disappointed. He had planned to listen to her practice and see if the replication progress of those songs would increase again. "Miss Simpson, I made an extra serving of beef rice. Would you like some?" Zeb called up the stairs. Moments later, a stunningly pale face peeked out from the second floor and said to Zeb, "I'm not hungry." Then she added, "I'm going to take a shower now, so don't come upstairs." Zeb nodded. "Don't worry, Miss Simpson. I will abide by our agreement." Myra glanced at him and quickly withdrew her head. After a while, he heard footsteps and the sound of a door closing, followed by faint water sounds. Zeb didn't continue standing at the bottom of the stairs listening to her shower. He sat down on the sofa, looked up at the ceiling, and began to ponder his future path. Zeb and Yvette were both vocal majors in college, and in terms of professional ability, Zeb was actually much stronger than Yvette. However, Yvette liked standing in the spotlight and being noticed, while Zeb was much more indifferent, willing to be the man behind Yvette. Now that he had awakened the memories of his past life on Earth, Zeb believed he would eventually recall those entertainment works from Earth. It was also time to test his abilities. However, he didn't plan to sign with any company. Most entertainment companies treated artists as money-making tools. Take Myra for example. Despite being heavily criticized online, he hadn't seen SkyCloud Entertainment do anything to help her. And they were still busy getting her various gigs and endorsements. So, Zeb planned to be a professional amateur. In Blue Star, artists in the entertainment industry had to sign contracts with management companies to debut. However, aside from these professional artists, there were also many talented amateurs who could publish their works on a platform called Amateur Station. If their works were outstanding enough, had high views, and received a lot of tips, these amateurs could also make a living from it. This Amateur Station was also known as a station. It was somewhat similar to TikTok on Earth, a platform where anyone could publish their works without any barriers. Zeb's first goal was to become a master in the music section of a station. Using that as a springboard, once he gained enough fame, he would establish his own studio and enter the entertainment industry. While Zeb was deep in thought, he realized that it had gotten dark outside without him noticing. There was still no sign of movement from the second floor. Zeb felt something was off. It had been over an hour. Could a shower really take that long? Ms. Simpson? Ms. Simpson. Zeb walked to the stairs leading to the second floor and called out loudly. There was no response. Suddenly, Zeb noticed water flowing down the stairs. He didn't care about the cohabitation agreement anymore and quickly rushed up the stairs, only to see that the light was on in the bathroom on the right side. And water was continuously flowing out from under the door. Zeb hurried over and knocked on the door. Ms. Simpson. Still, there was no response. Zeb twisted the doorknob. It was locked from the inside and wouldn't budge. In an emergency, Zeb didn't have time to think much. He took 2 steps back and kicked the door open, rushing inside. The bathroom was large, with a wet and dry separation. There was a shower area, and next to it was a bathtub. Water was gushing out from the bathtub. At that moment, Myra, who was completely unclothed, was lying motionless in the bathtub. She was submerged in the water, with only her head sticking out, leaning against the edge of the bathtub. At this moment, she wasn't wearing any clothes, yet she didn't react at all to Zeb bursting in. Could it be that she couldn't handle the rumors online and chose to end her life? A thought flashed through Zeb's mind, but he didn't have time for anything else. He hurried over to check on Myra's condition. During college, Zeb had learned some basic first aid knowledge. After a quick check, he found that Myra had a pulse and her heartbeat was steady. This situation didn't seem like a case of drug overdose or anything like that. Zeb let out a small sigh of relief, quickly grabbed a bath towel, wrapped it around Myra's body, and carried her out of the bathroom. Looking around, directly opposite the bathroom was a large room, which should be Myra's practice room. Next to it was another room, likely Myra's bedroom. Zeb carried Myra into her bedroom and placed her on the bed. He didn't dare to wipe her damp body, so he left her wrapped in the towel and covered her with a blanket. This situation was likely due to her weak condition, not having eaten dinner, the bathroom being relatively enclosed, and the water temperature being too high, causing her to faint. It was similar to how people sometimes faint when soaking in hot springs. Zeb had a guess in his mind and called out to Myra, Ms. Simpson. After calling a few times, Myra finally slowly opened her eyes, her cold beautiful gaze now filled with confusion. After a moment, she seemed to realize her current situation. Her pale face was suddenly covered in frost as she pulled the blanket closer, shifting a bit away from Zeb, looking at him coldly. What do you want? Zeb was a bit surprised. Usually, when ordinary girls find themselves in such situations, they either scream or cry. He didn't expect Myra to be so composed. She truly was a woman as cold as ice. Zeb quickly explained what had just happened. Myra was silent for a moment. The frost on her face eased a bit, but she still cautiously held the blanket tightly around herself. Mr. Lowe, thank you. Then she added, I want to rest. Zeb nodded. After all, the girl wasn't wearing clothes, and as a man, it wouldn't be appropriate for him to stay by her side. He stood up and walked to the bedroom door, turning back to say, Ms. Simpson, how about we go to the hospital? Hearing the word hospital, Myra's body seemed to tremble slightly, and after a moment, she shook her head. Zeb looked at her pale face and asked again, do you want to eat something? I made some beef rice in the kitchen. Myra clearly needed to eat to regain her strength. Thank you, I'm not hungry. Myra's voice was cold, and just as she finished speaking, her stomach growled twice. Instantly, the pale cheeks of the cold woman turned red at a visible speed, like red paint splashed on a white canvas. quickly spreading to her delicate earlobes. Zeb couldn't help but smile and asked, "Should I bring you a bowl?" I want a rest, please go out." Myra buried her head, her icy voice tinged with embarrassment and irritation. Zeb nodded and didn't say anything more before stepping out. Once the bedroom door closed, Myra listened intently, confirming that Zeb had gone downstairs. She quickly threw off the blanket, revealing the half-covered body wrapped in the bath towel. Her skin was as white as jade, shimmering brilliantly under the light. Wrapping herself in the towel, she got out of bed, locked the bedroom door from the inside, and quickly pulled out a set of underwear and long-sleeved pajamas from the wardrobe. She sat back on the edge of the bed, a bit dazed. Did he see all of me just now? What should I do? In Myra's 24 years of life, she had never let any man see her body. She was a very traditional woman. Even in college, while her roommates were busy dating and showing off their relationships, she was always focused on classes, the library, her dorm, and the talent agency. Boys who pursued her could line up from her university's girls' dormitory to the back door of the neighboring Science and Technology University, including many rich and handsome heirs, but she had never paid attention to anyone. Even after becoming a star in the music industry, many in the entertainment circle pursued her. But all they received was a cold rejection. It could be said that Myra had hardly interacted with men, and she rarely spoke to them. But today, she had been fully seen by a man she had only known for a few hours. And she couldn't say anything, after all, he had saved her. Myra's mind uncontrollably recalled the image of herself lying in the bathtub, completely unclothed, then being carried by Zeb. Ah! Myra let out an embarrassed whisper, hugging her knees while sitting on the bed, burying her head in her arms. Gurgle. Her stomach audibly protested again. Myra, feeling frustrated, slapped her flat stomach and said sternly, "Stop it, how embarrassing." At that moment, downstairs, Zeb was a bit dazed. The song Unfortunately, It's Not You had completed its memory replication at 100%. And the song had been fully replicated. Ordinary Road was at 80% replication progress. Encounter was at 70% replication progress. Lonely Hero was at 35% replication progress. The replication progress of Unfortunately, It's Not You had actually completed. The lyrics, melody, arrangement, instrumental performance, and singing details of this song were deeply ingrained in Zeb's mind and body. He didn't need to practice, he could pick up a guitar and sing it right now. Moreover, the replication progress of the other 3 songs had also increased significantly. It should be soon that he would remember them completely. Originally, the replication progress of these 4 songs had been below 50%. But as soon as Zeb lifted the fainted Myra from the bathtub and their skin touched, the replication progress had surged. Zeb could now basically confirm that as long as he was in close contact with Myra, the memories of the Earth's entertainment works would recover quickly. Furthermore, the deeper and more intimate their contact, the faster the recovery of those memories. Isn't this a bit indecent? Zeb felt a bit helpless. Did he really have to intentionally get closer to Myra to remember those classic works from Earth more quickly? That felt a bit sleazy. After thinking for a moment, he decided to stick to his plan and build his reputation on a station first. The first step was naturally to perform Unfortunately, It's Not You and then upload the video to a station. This song was extremely classic on Earth and a perennial favorite in KTVs. Zeb believed that Unfortunately, It's Not You would also become a classic on Blue Star. This was also his first step toward becoming a rising star and entering the entertainment industry. Zeb tidied up the stairs and the living room a bit, cleaned up the water that had flowed out from the second-floor bathroom, and thought that he would just call someone to fix the damaged bathroom door another day. He looked at the second floor, and there was no noise. It seemed Myra had already fallen asleep. Zeb returned to his room, closed the door, and took out a guitar. Although he hadn't debuted as an artist, he enjoyed playing instruments in his spare time. In fact, he also had a piano in the previous house he shared with Yvette, which was his. But it was too inconvenient to take, so he only brought his guitar with him. In the original composition of Unfortunately, It's Not You, there were no guitars, but given the limited conditions now, he'll make do with a guitar for the time being. Actually, as long as the fundamentals are solid, any song can be played and sung with a guitar, and the effect won't be too far off. With his vocal skills and the complete lyrics and melody of Unfortunately, It's Not You, he can easily dominate the music section on a station. Of course, this song was originally meant for female singers, and Zeb didn't intend to use it to gain fame or even break the barrier between amateurs and professional singers. His real ace in the hole is Lonely Hero. This song has such strong empathy that everyone who hears it will feel their own emotions. Such a song needs to be released at just the right moment. It could definitely go viral and even become a household name, a true classic. However, the progress on the remake of Lonely Hero is only at 35%, so it seems I'll have to wait patiently. Zeb picked up the guitar, strummed a few strings to find the feel, and then started playing the melody of Unfortunately, It's Not You. Every detail of this song was etched in his mind, and transforming the original score into a guitar tab was effortless. After playing it a few times, Zeb found that the guitar accompaniment combined with a male voice worked quite well, cleverly masking the parts of the original song that didn't fit a male vocal range. Having practiced enough, Zeb recorded a formal version with his phone and then edited the video using software. He added the song title, followed by the performer, lyricist, composer, and player. Sorry. That would be mean Snowboat. As a platform for amateurs to publish their works, uploading on a station is very convenient. You just need to record a video on your phone, edit it, and post it on a station. Zeb actually often browses a station, checking out the music, poetry, and comedy sections, and he even registered an account with the ID, Snowboat. Once he added the lyrics, he was basically done. As for beauty filters and video color adjustments, those weren't necessary because Zeb had already covered his face in the video. He wasn't aiming to be a pure singer, he wanted to enter the industry as a songwriter, establish his own studio, and eventually develop it into an entertainment company. What he wanted was to sign others, not be signed by someone else. Who has ever seen a boss constantly in the limelight? The once pure-hearted man disappeared the moment he divorced Yvette Smith. The person standing in front of you now is a ruthless career machine. Zeb clicked into the A Station app on his phone, and it automatically logged him into his account named Snowboat. He then found upload work and uploaded his video of playing and singing Unfortunately It's Not You. Please select the category for your work. Music section. Please give your work an attention-grabbing title. Zeb thought for a moment, recalling how this song was a massive hit on Earth, still sung by many, especially in karaoke, where it was frequently requested. Many heartbroken people even sang while crying. Thinking of this, Zeb smiled slightly and quickly wrote a title for his first work on a station. Original healing song, perfect for those who've just experienced heartbreak. He clicked confirm and uploaded. Next came the review and copyright registration. If it's original music, after review, the amateur site can directly help the video owner register the copyright. The amateur site is very efficient. An hour later, the copyright registration was complete, and the review was approved. Zeb immediately browsed the homepage of a station but didn't see his video at all. Searching Zeb Lowe, he found his newly uploaded video and checked the data. Views, 2, likes, 0, tips, 0, favorites, 1. Alright, it's too soon after uploading, and he wasn't a well-known amateur star, so it wouldn't go viral that quickly. Clang! At that moment, Zeb heard a noise from outside. Suddenly, Zeb's heart tightened. Could it be that guy who sent threatening photos to Myra? He slowly got up, turned off the lights in the room, and walked to the door, gently pushing it open. It was already deep into the night, and the living room was pitch black, but he could faintly hear some rustling sounds. There really was someone? Zeb couldn't find any weapons, so he quietly crept into the living room and listened carefully. The sound had turned into a munching noise, as if someone was chewing on something. The source of the sound was in the kitchen. This was even more dangerous. There were many sharp knives in the kitchen. But why was this guy threatening Myra in the kitchen? Was he sneaking food? Was this truly a perverse act that ordinary people couldn't understand? Zeb didn't have time to think about that. After all, Myra was his employer, and she was a girl. He couldn't just run away and leave her alone at home, right? Zeb crouched low and quietly approached the munching sound, and in the darkness, he saw a vague shadow. Taking a deep breath, Zeb suddenly lunged out, grabbing the figure from behind and bringing them down to the ground. To prevent the other person from having a weapon, Zeb tightly held their arms from behind. His legs also wrapped around the person's legs, executing a hellish chokehold. "Don't move!" Zeb shouted loudly. If he could alarm Myra, that would be best. He could restrain the intruder and then have her call the police. In the next moment, Zeb suddenly felt something was off. Why was this intruder so thin? The skin on their arms was smooth, the waist slender, and the legs long and delicate. Then a few lines of text appeared before him. Ordinary wrote Earth memory replication in progress 90%. Encounter Earth memory replication in progress 80%. Lonely hero Earth memory replication in progress 45%. Collection of Tang and Song poetry Earth memory replication in progress 30%. The replication progress of those 3 Earth hit songs had increased again, and something new popped up. Collection of Tang and Song poetry? So besides songs, are there other types of Earth literary works? Wait, why would holding on to this sneaky guy also increase the Earth memory replication progress? Could it be that the person he tackled is? Let go of me. A cold voice rang out. Zeb was stunned. Could it really be Myra Simpson? No, why is she sneaking downstairs in the middle of the night, making noise in the kitchen? Isn't this just asking for misunderstandings? Zeb quickly released her, stood up, and turned on the light, only to see Myra in pajamas getting up from the floor. At that moment, the cool goddess looked a bit disheveled, her long hair covering her face. And her top was slightly askew, revealing a flat, snow-white belly. One of her slippers was missing, and a delicate little foot awkwardly touched the floor, her cute round toe even moving instinctively a couple of times. Miss Simpson, I'm sorry, I thought a thug was sneaking in to threaten you. Why didn't you turn on the light? What were you doing in the kitchen? Zeb felt quite awkward. He had seen his female boss in the nude on his first day at work, and now he had tackled her. This was quite the situation. Zeb couldn't help but recall what the round-faced assistant Nettie had said, it's 24-hour close protection, you know. Sweat, this was indeed very close protection. Myra didn't answer, lowering her head, her long hair hanging down to cover her face, but Zeb still noticed the grease stains near her mouth. Turning his head, he saw a plate of beef rice that had been eaten halfway on the table. Zeb was astonished. You came to the kitchen to eat something? A few minutes earlier, in the bedroom on the 2nd floor. It was very quiet. Gurgle. Then there was a burst of noisy sounds. A slender figure suddenly sat up in bed, looking down at her uncooperative belly with distress. Actually, Myra had been hungry for a while, but she had just been seen in the nude by her personal assistant. And she had proudly said she wasn't hungry in front of others, so she felt embarrassed to go downstairs to eat. She decided to endure her hunger and force herself to sleep. But she couldn't sleep at all, her stomach kept growling. Myra had no choice but to get out of bed, check the time, and saw it was already past 11. That guy downstairs should be asleep, right? She gently opened the door, quietly peeked outside, and saw no lights on the 1st floor. It was very quiet. He must be asleep. Myra tiptoed down the stairs, walked into the kitchen, and remembered Zeb had said earlier that he made beef rice, which made her mouth water. Having just recovered from an illness, she had been eating very lightly lately, and it had been a long time since she had any rich food. Beef, oh, it was her favorite. Myra glanced toward Zeb's bedroom, the door tightly closed. Yes, he must be sleeping. Not wanting to be discovered by Zeb, Myra didn't turn on the light. Instead, she used her phone as a flashlight, searched around, and finally found the beef rice in the pot on the stove. It was cold, but still smelled quite good. Myra opened the cupboard, took out a plate and spoon, but accidentally made a clanking sound when the plate bumped into something. Myra was startled, quickly crouched down with the plate, and peered into Zeb's room. No movement. Phew, Myra breathed a sigh of relief, she was just too hungry. She quickly scooped the rice from the pot onto the plate and started eating it standing up. The first bite in, her eyes lit up. The taste was really good. Too bad it was a bit cold, it would have been better if it were hot. Forget it, that would definitely alert that guy, she'd just make do with it. Myra didn't like to interact with strangers, let alone eat in front of a man who had just seen her body. Although this man had saved her, Myra was still a bit uncomfortable about it. Fortunately, it was already quite late, and she could quietly eat alone to fill her stomach. As Myra was focused on her meal, she was suddenly tackled from behind. And the other person pressed tightly against her, wrapping his arms around her body. He was so close that Myra could even feel the warm breath from the person's mouth on her ear. Then this guy shouted at her, "Don't move." Myra was furious, her chest heaving. "This is my home, you tackle me and then tell me not to move?" She coldly said, "Let go of me." At this, the guy finally realized something was wrong, quickly released her, and turned on the light. Myra wanted to stop him from turning on the light, but it was too late. She hurriedly stood up, but her current appearance was truly ungraceful. Her hair was disheveled, her clothes were in disarray. If her fans saw her, they might just drop their jaws in shock. Is this really our cool goddess? More like a goddess gone mad. What was even more embarrassing was that Zeb quickly realized that Myra was sneaking some of the beef rice he made. So you came to the kitchen to eat? Myra felt like she could die from embarrassment, lowering her head and softly replying with an yes. She wanted to rush back upstairs, but she had only eaten a little and was still hungry. Moreover, this beef rice was too delicious. She was a bit reluctant to leave it behind. Zeb noticed her awkwardness and smiled, saying, "Why don't you sit for a moment? I'll heat the rice up, cold food isn't good for your health." Myra still kept her head down and replied with okay, then hurriedly escaped from the kitchen and sat down in the living room. Soon, the sound of frying rice filled the kitchen. In the quiet of the deep night, it didn't seem noisy at all but rather brought a warm, homey feel. It was completely different from the lonely nights she usually spent chewing through solitude and fighting off hurtful rumors. Myra brushed her disheveled long hair and, for some reason, felt that this spacious but cold home seemed a bit warmer. Before long, Zeb brought out a plate of hot beef rice and placed it in front of Myra with a smile, saying, "Eat up." Myra looked at the fragrant rice in the plate and then at Zeb, not moving her chopsticks. She really wasn't used to eating in front of a strange man, especially in the solitude of the late night. It felt too awkward. "What's wrong?" Seeing her hesitate, Zeb asked in confusion. "I'll eat in my room." Myra picked up the plate and walked toward her room on the second floor. Zeb watched her rush upstairs in a startled manner. Who eats in their own bedroom? What a strange habit. A beautiful, cool face peeked out from the second floor, and she said to Zeb, "Thank you." Then she quickly retreated, like a shy and cautious little kitten. A moment later, the sound of a door closing followed. Zeb shrugged, surprised that the well-known cool goddess of the entertainment industry was like this in private. Maybe her coolness wasn't genuine coldness, perhaps she was just introverted and shy? Zeb recalled the rumors online about Myra being involved in shady practices and being a mistress. But after these few hours of interaction, he found it hard to believe she was that kind of woman. From the way she acted, she probably hadn't even dated. How could she be as shameless as people claimed online? She was probably just being targeted by jealous competitors. After all, Myra rose to fame too quickly, so it wasn't surprising that others were envious. Zeb didn't dwell on it, she was the boss, and he was just an assistant. Today, he had already done a lot of things that were out of line for an assistant, and it was a miracle he hadn't been fired. Why bother with other people's business? He tidied up the kitchen a bit, confirmed that the front door was locked, and then returned to his room. Lying in bed, he found it hard to sleep. So much had happened today. He had gone from being a married man to a single guy, and then, inexplicably, became the personal assistant to a rising star. He was now living under the same roof as a goddess admired by countless men. Life, at times, truly is unpredictable. At that moment, Zeb's phone started buzzing with notifications. He picked it up and saw it was messages from the A station. You have received a 100-point tip. You have received a 1,000-point tip. Your work has reached 1,000 views, congratulations. Your work has reached 2,000 views, congratulations. Zeb quickly logged into the A station and checked his notifications. In just a short while, he had received dozens of tips, and the view count was skyrocketing. It was clear that in the past half hour, unfortunately, It's Not You had experienced a small surge in popularity. This wasn't surprising. The people in the music section of the A station were night owls who frequented the site late at night, especially those who enjoyed original music. After hearing a good song, they would spontaneously share and recommend it everywhere. It seems someone had been impressed by it. Unfortunately, It's Not You recommended it to friends, and it created a chain reaction, causing Zeb's video to see a rapid increase in numbers. There were even quite a few private messages sent to Zeb, but they were not compliments. Dude, you went too far. You said it was a breakup remedy? The more I listen, the worse I feel. Wow. I just got dumped and you make me listen to this? You're stabbing me in the wound. Clickbait is too much. Remedy? This is clearly a heartache. Zeb scrolled through the homepage of the music section on the A station and quickly saw his singing video at the bottom. The A station had many sections: music, dance, poetry, games, lifestyle, comedy, and so on. Each section had a homepage that was automatically recommended based on the number of views, likes, and comments at the time. Zeb looked at the data for his singing video. Views, 2931. Likes, 2392. Tips, 21,000 points. Favorites, 2876. The data may not be enough to take over the homepage of the entire A station, but it's sufficient to secure a spot at the bottom of the music section's homepage. Moreover, the numbers for "Unfortunately, It's Not You" are still rapidly increasing. Zeb recalled that he had titled this acoustic cover video, "Original Healing Song, Perfect for Those Who've Just Experienced Heartbreak." It was likely that many people clicked on it after seeing this title. Among them were certainly quite a few who, due to heartbreak, were unable to sleep at night and urgently needed some healing. They thought they'd come in for a remedy. Little did they expect that upon hearing the song, they would feel even more depressed. Zeb clicked into the video, where there were already quite a few comments rolling by. Besides many expressing their amazement at the quality of "Unfortunately, It's Not You," there were even more who criticized him. "Wow, this song is amazing. Such a treasure of an original. This song is bound to go viral. You sing so well, video creator, please show your face. Who said this is a healing song? I'm crying my eyes out. I'm feeling down, damn it. Snowboat, could you share your address? I have some local specialties I want to send you." Zeb hadn't expected that a title he casually picked would bring such distress to everyone. He apologetically left a comment in the section. "If you feel healed, please recommend this to your friends so they can heal with you." Soon, the night owls in the music section replied below. "Wow, Snowboat, you're really something. I love it. I have a close friend who just went through a breakup. I've already recommended it to her. I couldn't get through to her on the phone just now. What should I do? My parents just divorced, and I played this song for them. Now they've decided to remarry. Thank you, Zeb. I sent the link to my ex-girlfriend, and she called me crying, calling me a jerk." The funny commenters were all over the place, and Zeb couldn't help but chuckle. At that moment, he received a private message in the back end, but unlike those filled with criticism or awe, this one simply asked, "Is this song your original work?" It was a person named Lonely Plum who sent it. Seeing this name, Zeb couldn't help but recall the image of Myra he saw earlier that afternoon at Skycloud Entertainment. Standing by the floor-to-ceiling window, that slender and beautiful figure seemed unable to be warmed by the sunlight, like a lonely plum on a snowy night. Zeb replied to Lonely Plum, "Yes, it's my original. Over 10 minutes ago, on the second floor." In her bedroom, Myra, having finished a plate of rice topped with gravy, felt a bit bloated and couldn't sleep at all. She sat on the edge of her bed, picked up her phone, and opened the A Stations app. Myra didn't have many friends. Her hobby during leisure time was browsing the A Station. Despite being a pop diva, she was quite similar to ordinary young people in private, enjoying interesting videos. However, Myra naturally couldn't use her real name. Her account on the A Station was called Lonely Plum. Myra loved the music section, especially original music. Although the songs created by ordinary people were often very simplistic, they were full of passion and love for music. They were far more genuine than those professional musicians in the entertainment industry who had gradually become superficial for fame and fortune. Sometimes Myra preferred to listen to these simple originals rather than deal with those money-driven singers and songwriters. The reason she chose the path of a singer was quite simple. She just loved singing. She enjoyed standing on stage, letting many others who loved music listen to her sing. However, now that more and more people were listening to her, she felt increasingly lonely. Myra entered the music section of the amateur station, scrolled for a while, and suddenly saw an original acoustic video, which has an interesting title, "Original Healing Song, Perfect for Those Who've Just Experienced Heartbreak." Myra's lips curled slightly. Based on her frequent browsing experience, titles like this were more likely to make people feel down. However, she wasn't afraid. She had never been in a relationship, so she wasn't worried about feeling blue. She clicked into the video, and a man holding a guitar appeared on the screen. Though his face was hidden, and the background was very simple, just a bed behind him, with nothing else. Myra paused, feeling an inexplicable sense of familiarity. Just as she was pondering, the song title appeared on the screen, "Unfortunately, It's Not You." Then the sound of the guitar started, the melody somewhat melancholic, and the singing began, carrying a hint of sorrow. "Unfortunately, it's not you. Who accompanied me until the end. Once walked together but lost at that intersection. A few minutes later, as the song ended, Myra raised her hand to wipe her slightly moist eyes. Although she had never been in a relationship, she could still distinctly feel the regret and sorrow in the lyrics about a once beautiful relationship inevitably fading away. Moreover, Myra could pick up on some subtle details. For instance, this song was supposed to be heart-wrenching, but the man named Snowboat sang it with a touch of relief and acceptance. The first half of the song was very low, quite difficult to sing, while the second half suddenly became high-pitched. But Snowboat handled it excellently throughout, demonstrating skills that surpassed some professional singers. However, his voice clearly wasn't suited for this song, or rather, the song was more suited for a female vocalist. Myra felt a bit curious. Was this song originally written for a girl? When music lovers hear a remarkable original song, the excitement and curiosity are hard to suppress. Plus, she had eaten too much, her stomach feeling bloated, making it impossible to sleep. Myra couldn't help but send a private message to the person named Snowboat. "Hello, is this song your original work?" Zeb quickly replied, "Yes, I created it." "Myra, this song is so healing, I really like it." Zeb, "Really healing?" Myra, "Yeah, the more I listen, the more energized I feel." Zeb, "Okay, thank you for your encouragement." Myra, "Can I ask? This song is actually written for a girl to sing, right?" Zeb, "How did you know it was written for a girl?" Myra, "I actually understand a bit about music, I can tell." Zeb, "You're quite the kindred spirit, huh? Why did you choose the name Lonely Plum?" Myra, "Then why are you called Snowboat?" Zeb, "Because I was born on a boat during a snowfall." Myra, "I feel like I'm like a plum blossom that looks beautiful but is actually not liked by anyone." Zeb actually couldn't sleep either, too much had happened today, leaving him in a state of excitement, with his brain unusually active. Simply put, he was suffering from insomnia. So he started chatting with this person named Lonely Plum through private messages on Station S. When he saw the reason for her name Lonely Plum, Zeb couldn't help but laugh. This person was quite narcissistic, actually calling herself beautiful. From Zeb's experience, the more someone says such things, the more likely they are to be a fake cute girl and a real tough guy. People who claim "I'm a girl, I'm beautiful," are often just a large man sitting in front of the screen. Zeb didn't want to continue chatting with this fake girl, so he sent a message. "I'm going to sleep, goodbye." He then put down his phone, lay down on the bed, and closed his eyes. It's quite miraculous. After chatting with Lonely Plum for a while, Zeb's mood gradually calmed down, and sleepiness washed over him, and he quickly fell asleep. On the second floor, Myra felt a bit frustrated. She was just about to ask more questions about the arrangement of the song. "Unfortunately, it's not you." Because she felt that if it were played with richer instruments, the singing effect would surely be better. But the person on the other side, Snowboat, had just said a goodbye and then went silent. Myra stood there in a daze, her cool brows slightly furrowing. After finally finding an original song that was both emotional and skillfully made, she wanted to discuss it, but he ignored her. It was so frustrating. At that moment, her assistant Nettie sent a message. "Miss Simpson, are you asleep? How did Mr. Lowe perform tonight? He didn't do anything unusual, did he?" Nettie knew her well and understood that Myra had trouble sleeping, so she was likely still awake. Myra replied, "Going to sleep soon. Mr. Lowe is fine, totally normal. You should sleep early too, good night." Then she lay on the bed, pulled up the blanket, and in the dark. Her bright eyes blinked twice as thoughts of how she woke up lying on the bed after fainting in the bathroom came to mind. Maybe she should find an opportunity tomorrow to ask him, how much did he actually see? Perhaps he didn't see too clearly? But how to ask about such a thing? Feeling both shy and confused, Myra simply picked up her phone, plugged in her headphones, and played "Unfortunately, It's Not You" again. As she listened, Myra's eyelids grew heavy, and she curled up in the blanket, falling into a deep sleep. The next day, around 7 in the morning, Honor and Nettie drove over, catching a flight at 10 from L City to X City. This afternoon, Myra was scheduled to record the first episode of I Am a Singer at X City TV. When they arrived, Zeb had already gotten up early and prepared breakfast for himself and Myra. As for Honor and Nettie's breakfast, that wasn't Zeb's responsibility. The personal assistant was only responsible for closely protecting Myra and managing her daily needs. At that moment, Myra was washing up on the second floor. And the lively assistant Nettie couldn't help but gulp as she looked at the sumptuous breakfast laid out on the dining table. her chubby little hand reaching toward a steamed bun. Honor slapped her greedy hand. "Didn't we eat on the way here? But this bun smells so good." The assistant said pitifully, "How can Miss Simpson eat so much by herself?" Honor shot her a glare and turned to Zeb, asking, "Zeb, everything normal last night?" Zeb nodded, "Pretty normal, nothing happened. Except he saw Myra naked and tackled her once. Other than that, everything was quite normal." When Honor and Nettie entered just now, they went upstairs, and the three women chatted for a while, but Myra clearly didn't mention last night's events to either of them. She probably felt embarrassed. Since Myra didn't say anything, Zeb naturally couldn't either. It would just be their little secret. Myra soon came downstairs. She hadn't put on much makeup, just tied her long hair into a simple ponytail, wearing casual sportswear and jeans. However, those long legs were still quite noticeable, long and plump, unlike some overly skinny women whose legs look like sticks. Myra's legs were both elongated and well-proportioned, swaying enticingly as she walked. Even though she was dressed casually, that allure didn't diminish at all. This must be what they call both pure and alluring. Zeb began to understand why Myra attracted such extreme fans. A woman who was both cool and naturally charming could easily evoke a man's possessiveness. Myra came down, sat at the dining table, picked up a steamed bun, took a bite, her eyes brightening slightly as she focused on eating. In no time, she polished off 5 or 6 steamed buns and drank a bowl of millet porridge, finishing it with an egg. Nettie was watching eagerly from the side and finally couldn't help but ask, "Miss Simpson, is it delicious?" Myra glanced at Zeb, then withdrew her gaze, saying lightly, "Just average." Nettie nodded. "Oh, Miss Simpson, you've eaten so much, I thought it was quite tasty." Myra felt a bit awkward, wiped her mouth with a napkin, and stood up. "Let's go." After saying that, she hurriedly pushed the door open and left. Honor smiled at Zeb. Myra hasn't had breakfast like this in a long time. Her cooking skills are impressive. Zeb was surprised. "Didn't Miss Simpson say it was just okay?" Honor chuckled, while Nettie added, "Mr. Lowe, you'll understand after spending more time with Myra. She just doesn't know how to compliment people." Zeb looked at Myra's cool and lonely figure, slightly nodding. He had sensed it last night. This cool goddess might not be truly cold, she just struggles to express herself. At noon, the four of them took a flight to X City. X City Television had sent someone to pick them up, a lively staff member from the production team who talked non-stop about the show. "By the way, Miss Simpson, Yvette Smith from your company just arrived at the studio." In the car, the lively staff member suddenly said. Myra pulled her gaze from the window and nodded. "Oh, okay, thank you." The staff member felt a bit awkward, but Nettie quickly took over the conversation, and the two equally lively girls started chatting again. Zeb was stunned. He hadn't expected Yvette to be here too. It's not easy for a secondary artist to participate in a top-tier show like I Am a Singer. Zelda must have done quite a bit behind the scenes. He thought to himself, better keep a low profile and avoid running into her. Since they've divorced, there's no need for any more contact. As Zeb pondered this, the car arrived at X City Television, and they took the elevator from the underground parking lot to the 5th-floor recording hall. Guests needed to familiarize themselves with the venue and practice their songs before recording began the next day. Throughout the journey, Zeb wore sunglasses, quietly following behind Myra, almost like an invisible man. When the elevator reached the 5th floor, the doors opened, revealing Yvette and her manager, Zelda. "You." At the moment the elevator doors opened, Yvette froze, her mouth slightly agape, a look of shock on her face, followed by wariness. Even though Zeb was wearing sunglasses and standing behind Myra's manager and assistant, after 3 years of marriage, Yvette still recognized him at a glance. As expected, he didn't want to get divorced and actually followed her to X City. "How did he know I would be at X City Television for the show? They haven't even announced the guest list for this season of I Am a Singer. He can track my whereabouts like this? Is this man still so obsessed with me?" Yvette looked at Zeb, her feelings complicated. She felt proud of her charm but worried about Zeb potentially revealing that she had already been married. Just then, Yvette's manager, Zelda, was the first to regain her composure and smiled at Honor. "Ms. Honor, what a coincidence. Myra and Yvette were both signed artists of SkyCloud Entertainment. And Zelda and Honor were also managers from SkyCloud Entertainment, so they naturally knew each other. However, due to the varying statuses of the artists they managed, there were distinctions among managers. For instance, Zelda had to call Honor MS, even though she was actually a few years older. Honor didn't mind and politely replied with a smile. "Ms. Clark, you all arrived quite early. I heard Yvette chose a great song this time, good luck. We're just here to make an appearance, the spotlight is really on Myra. By the way. Zelda, smiling, casually asked, is Myra feeling better? Myra had been ill recently and took quite a long break. Everyone at Sky Cloud Entertainment knew this was her first appearance after recovering for I Am a Singer, and many fans were eagerly anticipating it, while others were waiting to see her mess up. The entertainment industry is this cruel, who cares if you're unwell or have a sore throat? Once you're out of commission, someone will quickly take your place. For example, Yvette's goal was to use I Am a Singer to defeat Myra head-on. That way, the company would shift resources that originally belonged to Myra over to her. But unexpectedly, Zeb appeared here, standing next to Myra. Much better, thank you for your concern. As Honor smiled back at Zelda, Myra and Zeb stepped out of the elevator. Zelda pulled Yvette, who seemed a bit dazed, to the side and then entered the elevator. Yvette brushed past Zeb, her heart racing, fearing he would cause a scene. But Zeb remained calm, acting as if he didn't know her, not saying a word until the elevator doors closed. Phew! Yvette breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, only she and Zelda were in the elevator, and Yvette's expression darkened. What does he want?